6. Calls for trips will be accepted up until 5 p.m. of the day prior to the meeting. Please be sure to mention in your request that you require transportation for the City of Des Moines meetings at this location. This notice is intended to comply with accessibility requirements of the Americans with Disability Act. All right, it looks like we have a quorum tonight. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of our September 5th meeting? Thank you, Greg. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the September 5th meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Okay. Are there any abstentions? An abstention, and of course, any nays? Seeing none, thank you. At this time, before I read the consent items, it's my understanding on the only public hearing item that we have tonight, which is a request from Come and Go for property located at 3104 University and 1134 31st Street, that the applicant has agreed to the conditions and the staff recommendations, and the neighborhood association, which is Drake Neighborhood, is also in agreement. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chair.
And is there anybody here from either of those, the applicant or the Drake Neighborhood, to affirm that? So is that correct, that the neighborhood association is in agreement? Yes. All right, thank you. So seeing that, Commission, is there a recommendation to move this item to consent?
Also move.
Thank you, Dory. All those in favor of moving item number 5 from public hearing to our consent agenda tonight, please signify by raising your hand. Don't check whether any abstentions. Okay. Are you a aye, Jack?
Yeah, aye.
Okay. All right, thank you. So thank you for coming. Looks like the item has been, it's moved to consent. We haven't voted on it yet. All right, so the consent agenda tonight, item number 1 is a city-initiated request to vacate a segment of 7th Street, south of Indiana Avenue, to allow it to be assembled with existing adjoining property at 1233 7th Street. Is there anyone in the audience that wished us to remove this item from consent? All right, is there anyone on the commission that wishes to hear this item? Seeing none, that item will remain on consent. Item number 2 is a request for vacation of a right-of-way parcel to allow it to be assembled with existing adjoining property located at 6024 Roundwood Drive. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to have us hear this item tonight?
Chair, we do have an individual that's asked prior to the meeting starting that this item number 2 come off the consent.
All right.
Yes, the item number 2.
All right, so we're going to move that item to public hearing, correct? Item number 3 is a request from Greater Iowa Credit Union for the property located at 2944 Des Moines Street. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes us to pull this item from consent tonight? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that wishes to hear this item? All right, seeing none, that item will remain on consent. Item number 4 is a request from Meyer LLC for property located in the vicinity of 650 Southeast 30th Street. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to remove this item from consent tonight? Seeing none, is there anyone on the commission that wishes to hear this item? All right, so our items for consent tonight are item number 1.
Madam Chair, I don't think we asked if anyone in the audience wanted to hear item 5.
That was the public hearing. That was,
Right. But when we moved it to consent, I just don't think we asked,
oh, I'm
just
sorry.
in case.
Okay, so was there anyone that, the neighborhood association said that you were fine with it, but is there anyone else in the audience that wished to hear that? Okay?
Thanks, Ed.
That's it. So items on consent are number 1, number 3, number 4, and number 5. Is there a motion?
I move. I move.
Emily moves the item tonight. All those in favor of our consent items, please signify by raising your hand.
Good job.
Okay. All right, the consent agenda has been approved. Again, thank you if you came for any of those. And so now we're ready to hear item number 2.
Chair, members of the commission, Jason Van Essen, city planning staff. Item 2 is a vacation request, access right away, not a street or an alley, but along a trail system. See the outline of the right of way. There's notice, response cards going around. This is the response map. The gentleman that's with us tonight that requested the item be discussed and taken off the consent agenda owns this property, and in visiting with him, he has interest in acquiring kind of the triangle that's behind him. I'll show a couple photographs. I think we can resolve this fairly quickly. This is subject property, the applicant. In talking to the applicant, he has no problem with working with real estate and the neighbor and not acquiring this part and letting the other neighbor acquire it. Seems a fine thing to do. So I think we can work that out. The one thing that I wasn't able to resolve and with the neighbor prior to the hearing starting was he also has some interest in acquiring a little bit more land than what was noticed. And so I just want to let him know and then let the commission know that to do that, we either need to continue the item and renotice it if the applicant is agreeable to continuation. The other would be for the neighbor to submit his own application for the balance of what he would like to acquire. Happy to answer any questions. We did have some conditions on the proposal, subject to, we recommend approval subject to reservation of any necessary easements for any utilities in place, standard language, provision of a conservation easement on the property indicating that a development of structure or fencing is subject to city floodplain regulations. There's a part of this that is in the floodplain. That the applicant, once he acquires this land, have it adjoined, so we didn't have an orphan parcel. That's condition number 3. And then 4, there has been some enforcement. The applicant's acquired the property, renovate it. It has some deterioration issues. Has been the public nuisance process has started, and so condition 4 is just to make sure that prior to the sale of the land that's addressed. So I think the applicant's agreeable to all these things. It's really a matter of coordinating with the neighbor and trying to figure out if he's going to submit his own application for that triangle or not.
You have a question?
Well, when I was a kid, we played down there. I'll just leave it at that, and then I'll listen to what people have to say and tell you I'm familiar with the neighborhood and the condition of the house and all the things you're talking about. So we'll just hear the item.
Well, now you have us all in suspense, though. But, okay. So, are you done?
I'm done. We
Okay.
can turn it over to the chair. Chair, if you want to turn it over to the applicant, I can also talk to the neighbor a little bit, and then we
Okay.
can bring him up.
One thing, Jason, you showed us a map earlier with a triangle of land, and what were you trying to show us there?
Well, I
it
showed
had the
you
colors on it.
That's the response map of the cards. I was just pointing out that one of the neighbors in opposition is here tonight.
Right.
And that his concern is really about acquiring, he's not opposed to the vacation. He would just like to acquire square off the back end of his property, which the applicant's agreeable to. And if from the city's perspective, from your perspective, you're just making a recommendation on if this is needed for a public purpose. Who it gets sold to is not really a problem for you. That's something our real estate division would work through.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. If the applicant would step forward, please. State your name, address.
Hello, Dan Barry, the owner of the property, and also Design Build Incorporated, the company that's done the planning and stuff. I think Jason's pretty well covered everything. I'm not sure if there's a whole lot for me to say here. I mean, my intention is to fix up the house and move my family there. And I think it's consistent with the city's plan to sell these parcels off to relieve the city of burden and additionally put them on the tax roll. And I think it's fairly consistent with that plan. I think the only reason we've come to discussion is because maybe my application had spawned a neighbor's interest in possibly some of the land. But there's a big hill I initially maybe wasn't even interested in the triangle he's asking about, but City Real Estate had suggested that I simplify my request and request it all. So that's really the reason why it ended up that way. So I'd certainly be open to working with the neighbor. If he wanted to acquire some of it, I'd rather get approval from my end because if you,
I think you got to
I
push
don't know
it
if I can
back.
show you what Jason was showing you. I don't have that, but where it looks like he wants maybe this tiny triangle off of the tip of my finger, which may change the direction of this line. You know, we've got, you know, engineering and planning expense in this. And, you know, so maybe that should be a separate request in a similar process, but I'm open, you know.
Any questions for Mr. Berry?
Yeah, Mr. Berry, my name's Jack Helmus.
Sure.
I grew up on North Waterbury Road.
Yes.
I fell out of trees down there when I was a kid. I fished
Absolutely.
for fish in Walnut Creek. I ride now the bike path. I know neighbors on Ronwood who have concerns about that property
Sure.
and have you recently acquired
No,
that
I've
property?
owned the property for several years. It had sat vacant since I bought it out of auction.
Yeah, it's fallen into serious disrepair.
Well, I'm not sure about serious, but that's a matter of opinion. But, you know, regardless of that, you know, the intention is to fix up the house. And certainly the city's even got it in nuisance.
Right.
Well, they've actually released that until December, but because they're aware that I have some architects working on doing an addition planning and such. But, you know, the city will require at this point something to happen with the property. So I think it's maybe irrelevant. But
I can't remember if there are trees in the section that you propose to purchase.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's the part of it. Even the part that I suggest as less desirable is all trees. It's you know, the bottom side of a hill that, like as I stated, is not really even very desirable for me. My biggest goal would be to have an opportunity then to fence in the yard. There's currently a city-owned fence along this yellow line here. And so I sort of inherit use of this space already. And the fence stops at a point down in this area. And then, you know, there's about a 6-foot gap. And then it starts into kind of heavy brush and trees.
Right.
And it's clearly a point where people are accessing. I've seen dogs in the yard of the property, and you know, I have 2 young children, so I just like to be able to close the property off.
The deer like it, I know that. I've
Probably.
seen some nice bucks in there.
I imagine so.
Okay, have you talked to Mr. Pildes about what he wants to do?
Just briefly here tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Berry? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the applicant's request?
Yes. All right.
Seeing none, And this is the time, yes, Mr. Is it Pildes? Come forward. And this is.
My name is Isar Pildes. This is my 43rd year, as of this month, living at 6031 North Waterbury Road. I have absolutely no objection to the proponent acquiring the land next to his property on Ronwood. I absolutely object to the proponent acquiring the real estate behind Lot 7, Waterbury Park, Plat 2, which is 6031 North Waterbury Road. I did not know the city was interested in selling the right-of-way. I would have been here long time ago if I knew that you were. I will follow, as I told your representative and member of the staff, I will follow all the requirements of the City of Des Moines and its legal department in getting a legal description to that property, that your right-of-way, and filing all the necessary papers with the City of Des Moines to acquire that real estate. But I have no objection to the proponent acquiring the right-of-way by his property. I do object very strenuously to the acquisition of that real estate, the right-of-way behind my property. And if the commission understands my objection, I have nothing further.
Are there any questions for Mr. Pildes?
This is my card.
So Jason,
Just have them contact me and I'll actually
so Jason, is he understanding what our
Yeah,
position-
Chair, members of the commission, I did speak with the neighbor outside. He's aware, made him aware that he's going to need to submit an application. And you'll see a future case, assuming engineering supports this. But he has interest in acquiring a little bit more than what's been noticed. So we will take in an application from him, bring that back to you, and then partner with the real estate to make this all happen. I've given him my card so we can get him his attorney can contact me, give him the proper paperwork, and move forward.
Okay, I guess, but clear about what our action tonight, what that will be.
Yeah, your
There-
action is just to make a recommendation to council whether or not this is needed for a public purpose. You
Right.
could include language in there if you wanted to about exploring selling it to, both neighbors, if you felt compelled to do so.
All right, any other questions for,
So Jason, I'm unclear. If Mr. Pildes becomes an applicant appropriately, and there's a triangle of land which is part of this tract that would fit with his property line there, do we have to come back and do this all again? Is that what you're saying?
Unfortunately.
Well, should we just do that and
Well, we have-
abandon this for the evening and see if,
The problem is we haven't, he has interest in this little triangle area right here, and we haven't given notice to that. So we would need to notice that because that would impact the boundary of the notice that we sent out prior.
okay.
My guess is that's fairly close to the trail itself,
But-
and my guess is engineering may not want that vacated, so
That
that
is
doesn't stop them from asking for it, but
right. And we'll try to talk to engineering prior to collecting his application.
So where are we?
Jack, it looks like to me this can proceed.
Right, that's what I was gonna
If we
say.
decide there's no reason for the city to need the right-of-way, because that's what we're here to decide, then it goes on to real estate and wherever it goes for them to figure out between Mr. Pildes and Mr. Berry, however it's divided. That yellow piece that we see will be chopped in two potentially. The little triangle that Mr. Pildes is also interested in is a separate issue to me, and it'll come back as a little triangle if engineering decides that it can be foregone as right-of-way, otherwise we'll carry on. So I don't think it changes what we do tonight, as long as we decide that it's not needed as right-of-way.
That's fine, I'm just looking for clarification on whether Mr. Pildes' application requires this to be done all over again, and we'll be back anyway, but that's all fine. And we haven't closed the public
Yeah,
hearing yet.
just check and see if there are any more questions. All right, I'll close the public hearing. Anybody have a motion?
The only thing I would say is that I hate to see parcels of property that approximate, that maybe aren't, but do approximate park being given over to private ownership. And that's sort of where we are here. This is the bike trail that
I know it is.
starts, well, I don't even know where it starts now. It's been extended and extended, but say at Waveland Golf Course and drops down in here along Walnut Creek and heads out past McDonald's and back around behind Pal Joey's and on into the Waterworks Park. But right, I just hate to see it given over to private ownership under the circumstances. That's my only thought. It's a park-like area, and you know, where do we stop? It's not a park. It's not in Greenwood Park. It's not in Waveland Park. It's not in Walnut Woods, but it's park-like, and so that's my only concern.
All right.
And I agree with Jack. I think it seems like it's part of the park, and having more space beside the trail is not a bad thing to me. Unfortunately, the fence kind of defines the edge apparently, and that's probably the biggest factor. Had the fence been on the other side of that right-of-way line, it might not be an issue.
So
Oh,
it
you need a motion?
would be appreciated.
Somebody else should move, or not. Because I wouldn't.
Anyone want to take a stab at this one?
So if we move the staff recommendation, will this be resolved in the future? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think it will have to be a separate issue,
Of
right?
the selling it to two owners
Council.
or the potential to vacate additional land. The sell of it will be, real estate will advise them the situation, and they'll work with both property owners and negotiate the sale of the land to two or whoever.
And all
Yeah.
that's
Jason, the
predicated on what the council,
That happens.
The vacation and the sale are subject to a public hearing by city council.
That's correct. And then the other part is dependent upon whether or not engineering is willing to give up any additional land. Does that answer the question, Will?
It does, and may I ask, is that agreeable to you, sir? I say is,
Can I come up, because I have hearing
I
problems.
have the same problem, so we can talk with one another. Is what, did you hear what Jason had to say? If we approve what's here presented by staff recommendation, the process will go forward and you'll have an opportunity to state your case at a later time and offer your, you know, if you wish to buy the property.
I can start our process tomorrow. I've already talked to my law firm. They're aware of this. If you can guarantee me that you will not sell off that, we will start our process tomorrow to follow all of the City of Des Moines regulations on how we have to approach this. And I will buy it and I will pay you in cash.
and we want to point out not to Mr. Page. So, Glenna, are you able to clarify?
Hey, Will.
Yes, good evening. As you know, the city can't, your commission can't guarantee to whom any of the property will be sold or if it will be sold. One other point I'd like to make, my understanding of this property is that it is right-of-way. It is not parkland. Parkland, including that little triangle to the south, would have to go to the Park and Recreation Board first for approval of vacation as well as to your commission. So there's been some discussion about the public purpose. It's not a general public purpose in this instance. It's whether it's needed for a right-of-way for streets or sidewalks. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions about the process going forward with council?
I have a question for you. I thought I've heard, I'm trying to listen here, that these two gentlemen agreed that they would split this property. Now, I'm not sure that's what I've heard, but is that what I heard?
Yes,
But the applicant is Mr. Barry.
doesn't matter.
And for there to be a result for Mr. Pildes that has a seal of approval of the city of Des Moines starting here and moving through the process, it seems like he also has to be an applicant or a co-applicant in this deal.
No, actually, your role is really to decide whether or not the property is needed for right-of-way purposes. If it was parkland, it would be, whether or not, it could be vacated as that, but it's not. So, once you've made that determination, whether the property is needed or not for that purpose, then the real estate staff works with the applicant and any adjoining owners. In this case, they will work with Mr. Pildes on the portion that he wants to purchase, as well as Mr. Berry. We have had some items where this has been quite some time, but you have approved of the vacation, and it has gotten to the point where council is at the hearing stage, and someone else comes in with a completely different offer for the property for a different amount of money, and council approves that offer when they had never even shown up at the P&Z level. So really, you don't need to make a determination as to whom the property will be sold.
But this discussion will be forwarded to the council when they set their hearing, and then that letter gets sent to the real estate division.
Yep.
And our staff will also contact the real estate division to let them know there's at least two parties interested in acquiring portions of the property, and then they can work and resolve that prior to council.
Yep, so after these meetings, there's a roll call with your vacation recommendation that goes to council with the minutes of this meeting in letter form signed by Mike.
And so Mr. Pildes will be notified as well as Mr. Berry.
I believe that he has Jason's contact information and can give that to his attorney.
Jack, if you think of this like an alley has many owners along it, and there might be one person that comes in and says, well, I'm interested in the alley. You see the alley as a strip on our map, but right-of-way contacts all of the interested property owners, and if two on each side are interested, they divide it by half, whatever agreement can come. And so this is no different. It just happens to be an odd shape, and one of them wants something beside the property, one behind. But I think as long as everybody knows that these are interested people, right-of-way is going to say, does this make sense, and offer it to them.
In essence, we're setting in motion a process
Yes.
by determining whether or not this is needed for public right-of-way. And that's our limited question. And if not, then it can be vacated, at which point all interested purchasers have opportunity to swarm in.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah. So Jan?
I'll move staff to get it.
All right, so the staff recommendation is, number one, reservation of any necessary easements for all existing properties or utilities in place for Des Moines Waterworks for access to 24-inch main on adjacent remaining right-of-way until such time that these utilities are abandoned or relocated at the applicant's expense. Number two, a provision of conservation easement on the property indicating that any development of structures or fencing is subject to the city's floodplain development regulations. Number three, all contiguous parcels owned by the applicant shall be combined into one parcel recorded with Polk County. And number 4, any conveyance of the requested right-of-way shall not occur until any public nuisance status has been abated to the satisfaction of the zoning enforcement officer. That's the motion. All of those, or that's the staff
Madam Chair,
recommendation.
May I ask a friendly amendment? So it says all contiguous parcels owned by the applicant or applicants may be combined into one parcel somewhere or another, so in case there are more than one applicant.
But isn't this who owns it currently?
Maybe applicant or purchasers.
Right.
Something
better.
Is that agreeable to you, Jan? Okay. All right, that's the motion. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. I don't think, were there any nays? All right, thank you very much. Thank you for attending. That concludes our agenda items tonight. Are there any office director reports?
Just 2 quick items. Second reading of the ordinance for the new zoning code will be held on Monday night, the 23rd of September. Council meeting starts at 4:30, and so I know if you didn't have a chance to watch the hearing, it was about a 4.5-hour hearing on the zoning ordinance at council for the public hearing. They did close the hearing and voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the ordinance. So
High five.
Pardon?
High fives.
Oh, thank you. So the second reading will be held on Monday night, the 23rd, and then third reading is tentatively set for October 14th. The effective date that has been listed in the roll call setting the hearing and everything is anticipated to be December 15th. So we have a lot of work to do to get everything in place and have staff trained up and everything else to implement that, but we're going to get there. And then the final thing is there is a meeting with the city manager at noon tomorrow, and we need to know who will be attending. Thank you.
They've already been identified. Who's attending? Okay, just want to make sure. Any other business?
I think I will.
Jack said he's going to.
Yeah. Is nobody else coming?
No, we have 4 people.
Oh, okay. Just me.
But you're right.
Or tomorrow, you're going?
Yeah.
Did you put my name?
So we have Abby, Emily, Jack, Greg, and so Howard. Okay,
Special, I've never even been invited.
that'll be at noon. That'll be at noon at the city manager's office. So that's the north end of City Hall, first floor.
And it's for an hour, right?
Yeah.
All right, any other business?
20.
Meeting adjourned.